Hi, my name is Jordan. I am initially from Philadelphia, PA, and I am now a New York transplant. I am based in Brooklyn, New York. I am a model, dancer, and stylist. So I come from like a track family, so like honestly like nothing artsy kind of like circulated my household. Like we were very like a sports family. But my older cousin Brittany, she started dancing, or they put her in dance class because she was just very adamant about being like, I don't like this. I'm not enjoying this. And so my mom put me in it, and my mom initially just kind of put me in dance for just like to have like community and like for you to like move your body and be active. I think she also talked about like putting me in dance for like self-confidence. I mean, dance teaches you a lot about yourself. So like that was kind of my first taste, but it's definitely out of my norm because that's not my experience. Like no one in my family is, I don't want to say anyone, no one in my family is artsy. I think everyone's artsy in whatever like craft or avenue that they have for themselves, but specifically like arts, like dance, like creating, photography, all of that like was not my anything. So shout out to my mom for putting me in dance. And that's how we started. The thing about dance, well, or any like activity that we did, or that any physical activity my parents put us in, is that like we lived in Jersey and everything was based in Philly. My family's initially from Philly, but like we moved, at least my immediate Philly, my parents moved us to Jersey. So we were always traveling into like Philly for dance. So it was always kind of just like a thing, like you had to prepare yourself. So started going to school, the Shea School of Dance, which is where I've met like basically all of my dance friends. But started at the Shea School of Dance. It was like in probably 5 minutes away from like University of Penn's campus. So it was very nice to like go out and like grab lunch and like be outside and like hang out in the park, like in between like breaks, or especially when we have like, you know, like 9-hour rehearsals right before like a recital, and you're literally there all day kind of thing. So like it was very nice to kind of just like be in and out of the city. Started dancing at 2 and started ballet, tap, jazz, African, like hip hop were kind of just like the basis of where you started. I want to say I was at the Shea from 2 to about, I want to say until like 8th grade. So then we moved to Philly, and then I think at that point I just like outgrew that dance school. Like all of my friends had like kind of transitioned or just graduated and like went to college and kind of just like or moved around. So like I don't know, I really didn't think there was anything keeping me there. Then I went to the Point. Literally half my friends were there. So I was like, okay, cool. This is like sort of like an easier transition. And that's where I was kind of exposed to like company. Like I had never known what like a pre-professional company looked like for like a dance school. So like I was exposed to that. I was exposed to acrobatics where like you were actually learning tricks, like where you were learning like aerials and like backflips and like things of that sort. Like that's where I kind of got like that. Like it was definitely just like a step up from where my dance training had initially started, and like student choreography shows and like just like all these things. Like I had been exposed to just like a whole bunch of like different dance teachers who had been choreographing on like professionals like Ailey, and then like people who had been dancing with like Janet Jackson and like all of those kinds of things. So it was really nice to kind of just have like, very scary naturally, like trying to just transition into dance schools, but like it was really nice being exposed to like different types of dance, different types of like choreographers, different types of like, I don't know, students, and just like also just like literally different, everyone was in a completely different dance level than I was kind of used to. So that was also just like a thing that I had to adjust to. Like I'm like, oh, there's this girl that's 13 that's dancing like she's 24. Okay, like it was that kind of thing. So it definitely pushed me out of my comfort zone, and it wasn't very easy. I rejected it. I did not have always the greatest time, but it definitely pushed me. It definitely like propelled me forward in my dance career, and just like gave me sort of kind of like an idea of like where I wanted to go. I also met some of my favorite dance teachers ever. Like Tony was there, Miss Steph, of course, Miss Ayana. They were already previously my dance teachers, but like met them, like got to see them, like they still got to be a teacher in a completely different kind of like dance space. So that was really nice to kind of have that comfortability there still. And then, like I said, like a lot of my dance friends were still there. So I was like, oh, I'm also still taking classes with people that I've always taken classes with. So that was really nice. And then sometimes just dance schools don't work out. So like I ended up transitioning. I ended up going to Elion, which was great because at that time I ended up going to Kappa. So Kappa and Elion were literally like down the street from each other. And everyone who danced at Elion danced at Kappa, or like vice versa. So all of my school friends that I had been dancing with in school, I was then dancing with outside of that. Then that's when I got into like EDI first, and then EC, which is like the second pre-professional dance company to the professional dance company of Elion. So there's that, and then I got to travel a little bit, and like I'm spending my entire weekends in dance, and like I'm in pain, like yeah, and also like balancing like college, but also just like Elion kind of just like it definitely just like pushed me into the space of just like I was not really comfortable just like with improv. Like with Elion, I still don't like improv, y'all, I won't lie.
That's the thing.
Yeah, like
I think it was that big though when we were
it wasn't even that, and then I was also like spending my summers at DCNS. Like we were dancing 9 to 5 the entire summer. Some of us took 2 sessions. 2 sessions, first and second session. So there was that. I don't know, I just eat, sleep, breathe, dance for a very big majority of my life. So once I moved to New York, I was like, oh, like I can do other things that like, and also I just think that when you're a creative or an artist, there's just like never anything that you can't do, but it's also just like really good to kind of just like, oh, okay, like well I can use what dance taught me and transition that into whatever else. Well, that was like how it became so easy to kind of transition from dance and to modeling, and modeling into styling, because they're all kind of like interconnected. Like I'm like, okay, I'm using my body, but now a different way. Or like, okay, like clothes, but now in a different way. But like I've always been exposed to clothes because we had costumes. So like everything's kind of just, you kind of just realize everything's just connected. And everything kind of just like flows the way that it's supposed to. And now we're here. Now we live here and we do this. So yeah, but dance, I don't think that I'd be anywhere without dance as kind of just like the forefront. I moved here a year after. Okay. I think, yeah. I graduated in May of 2020. The pandemic began March of 2020. So like, I want to say like I was on my last spring break trip. I went to Puerto Rico with my friends. A week after, we were in quarantine. I was at the beach last week. What do you mean? Or like 2 weeks prior. So it was very insane. I could have stayed at school in my apartment, but all of my roommates had like moved home, and I was like, okay, well like I'll just move home. Moved home, finished like all of my finals online from my bed, which was crazy, and then didn't have like a formal graduation. We had like some type of like ceremony, and then yeah, that was that. And honestly, like my graduation day was like a regular day. My mom got us like matching shirts, and like we like went out and like ordered food from my favorite spot and like watched a movie, but other than that, like no. And then it was that time, I mean like we all had just like nothing but space and time to kind of like figure ourselves out. But in that space, I was like, okay, well like now that we're here and now that I'm not tied to doing things that I have to, I've graduated, now like I have this free time, what do I want to do? And so like find time for me to become a model in a pandemic, whatever. So like I had decided like, okay, like modeling is something that I actually want to pursue. And I knew that my sister was graduating the next year. And so I like put it in my brain. I was like, hey, listen, there's no way I'm living in this house without you. Right. You move to college, I move wherever I'm moving. Like you move out, I move out. And so that was the goal. And like while I was home, I had like gotten my own like photography equipment, and I like started like working with photographers, or like trying to take self-portraits, or just like sending out like applications to modeling agencies, and like trying to learn how to take digitals. Like these are all things that I'm just like trying to figure out via like models.com, or like watching like model diaries on like YouTube, like where they follow around a model and like things of that sort. So I was just kind of just like learning all of this from my bed and trying to implement it as best as I can. At that point, I started like coming into like New York when it was safe enough to travel. Coming into New York on the weekends, I had like my friend Angela from high school. She like stayed in Williamsburg, so I'd like be like, hey, like I booked with a photographer, can I come like stay over this weekend? And like I'd stay with her for the weekend, shoot with the photographer, and I'd go home. And at that point, I had been consistently coming to New York a couple weekends a month, and I was like, okay, I have to move here. I want to say August of 2021, a year. I give myself a year. August of 2021, my sister moved to DC. We moved her into Howard. A week after, my parents moved me to New York. I was like, told you I was not staying. Right. And now we're here. Now we've I don't know, we transitioned. It was very hard. It was a very hard year, the first year that I was here, but like I was just very dedicated to like, okay, like I have this time, like how do I want to like carve out what it is that I actually want to do, or like what are the things that I want to share with this world, and like just trying to figure that out. And again, you had nothing but time in the pandemic, and just like we couldn't talk to anybody, so it was just like, yeah, we couldn't go anywhere. So it was just like all this internal work that I had to do, and you just had to, and it was very scary. You just had to sit down. I just had to sit down with myself and be like, what is it that you want? Or like, what are the things that terrify you the most that you want? And I like wrote them down. At that point in time, I had like got a therapist, and like she was helping me find like apartment listings. And like, it just so happened that my boyfriend at the time, he ended up getting a full ride to Columbia in the film department for grad school. So I was like, okay, well, if you gotta go and I wanna be there, we'll just move together. So it ended up just working out like that. And I've been here since. I feel like that deserves like multiple people. I think like my friends gave me a lot of confidence. Obviously when you're starting out in something that's fairly new, it's easy to feel insecure because you don't know what you're doing. But like I had a lot of friends at the time. I had a friend, Sarah, who was a photographer, that would just like be like, hey, listen, like if you want to do things like this, like you're going to have to model like this because like you're really cute. That's what she would say to me. Like, she's like, you're really cute. So, like, it's easy to capture you cute. But, like, if that's not what you want to do, and that's not, like, how you want to be portrayed, or you want to be portrayed a little more edgier, this is how we have to do this. So, I had a lot of just people that, like, were very dedicated to just, like, seeing where I wanted to go and very dedicated to helping me get there. So, like, I worked a lot with Sarah. Like, she worked in the studio. So, we just, like, come and, like, we'd, like, do lunch maybe, and, like, we'll do, like, photos, and, like, she'll take my digitals, or, like, she kind of just, like, got me in this space to, like, make me feel uncomfortable. My friend Brandon was very big on just like how I needed to like have a social media presence as a model, which is like a thing that I'm still struggling with because I don't like to put everything out in the world. Like I like for things to be private. And then my mom was just very dedicated to telling me like, you only have like one life, so like do with it what you want, like and make sure that like how you're spending your time is like doing things that you want. And my dad was just very much like, I've been confined to like working these things or doing these things, and I don't want that to be your experience. So I had a lot of like family support. I had a lot of like, honestly, my friends closest to me, all of my closest friends now to this day, like Jasmine, Brandon, Sarah, like Cameron, even like Jalon, Brianna, like you guys, like you, like taking my pictures, like everyone was very just so willing to just like help me, like, or just like, it was like, yeah, no, I see that you could be good at this, let me help you kind of thing. Right. And I think it also just helps that like I'm also nice. Like it's really nice. It's really easy to work with someone that's really nice, or just someone that also just like isn't necessarily there for like a transactional experience, or not a transactional experience, like something like me taking something from you. Like it's always like, okay, like, well, what can I do for you? And like, how can we share? Even if it's not necessarily like a monetary thing, but it's something like, okay, like, how can I help you do this? Like, can I model for you in this kind of space? Or like, can I contribute in any other kind of creative way? So I think it's always about like give and take. But I think like the people around me who've inspired me the most are definitely my friends, my family. I have my mentor, Jose, who I met when I started working at Saks as a personal styling assistant, that would rip me to shreds. And not rip me to shreds like in a bad way, rip me to shreds and being like, you're really good at this, and I need you to pay attention when I'm bringing you in these spaces with these people. And I'm like, I'm gonna put my phone down, you got it. And also just like was one of the first people I think to just like to see me and to ask me like what it is that I wanted and how I wanted to like contribute in like fashion once I started getting into that. And so it was really nice to just like be seen. Especially in something where like I'm in New York, everyone's into fashion, everyone's stylish, everyone's pretty, everyone's great. So like it's kind of just like easy to feel very insecure, but it's very nice to have people who see me. So I would say like the people who see me are the people who inspire me. My mom is a fashion girly. Both my parents are like fashion girlies, not necessarily like drip down and like designer, but they were very just like always very conscious of like presentation when you walked out of the house. Like you're not walking out the house in a bonnet. Your bra strap should not be showing. Like you need to make sure that you're not ashy if you have your legs out. Like they were just always very conscious of like how you present when you step outside of the house, but also like this is a reflection of you, but you're also a reflection of me. So like you need to just take pride in what you wear. So like that's something that I always had in the back of my brain, or something my parents have always taught me. My mom used to manage the store Express, and so she just like has, and she's also a clothes whore. Like she just hoards everything. So like there are just like pieces that she'd have that she just would keep, and she's like, I can't fit them anymore. And she had me and my sister with the hopes that like you guys can fit them. And like there are certain things that you will never touch and that you will never wear, which I respect. But there are certain things that like I can't wear, but it's nice that you can. And so like for real, like how I got into fashion was like my mom exposing me to like polyester and like silk and like linen and like just like and exposing me in that way because of these are the clothes that she used to wear. Like these are the things that she invested in. So she was always big about like investing in like quality timeless pieces. Like denim shorts will never go out of style, like overalls will never go out of style, like a nice clean white t-shirts and black t-shirts, like neutrals will never go out of style. So like my mom kind of got me in that, and when I started modeling I was wearing all of my mom's clothes. Even still to this day as I'm styling, like I'm always choosing pieces that I think like my mom would have picked, or like in my brain I'm like timeless piece, like with something that I can be super versatile with. So like my mom definitely started that, and then I moved to New York, and the goal was to model, but I knew that if I was going to model I didn't know anything about like any of the designer brands because I didn't grow up like that. I was like, well, if I need to model and I want to know, this is the hub of where these brands exist outside of like Europe, let me make sure that like I have no choice but to be exposed to this, to like learn it. So like I'm in Saks and I'm like walking past all the collections, like, and I have to pull and like walk the floor with these clients and we're talking about fashion. Like I had no choice but to know what it was, which is why I wanted to kind of be put in that space, because I'm like, well, I have friends that are going to the castings for Bottega and I'm looking at the new collection in front of me now. So it's like, that's kind of how I started like transitioning. Like I was like, okay, like let me force myself into these spaces so that I have no choice but to know what this is. So now like I can walk down the street and be like, Bottega bag, and like, oh, Bottega pants, season like 22, like things of that sort. So it's very nice, but like that's how I started transitioning into styling via Saks. That's where I met Jose. He's my mentor. It kind of just like took me under his wing, and like we started learning about like makeup and jewelry and how those also encompass styling, and like just like bags. I'm not really a bag girly. I'm not at all. Just give me a nice little crossbody that fits everything it needs to in it. And let me go about my day. But like the importance of a bag and like the importance of accessory, or just like less is more, and like showing off a collarbone and things of that sort. So I learned all of that for real. Like I want to say the foundation was started with my mom. I like developed it in Saks, and then just like on sets, like with modeling, whenever I just like found my way into just like interning or just like working backstage at fashion shows. Like the first show I'd ever worked was backstage on was Christopher John Rogers, and I was like, oh my gosh, I saw this collection in Saks. It's so crazy to see like this collection like on these models, like, and being able to touch these clothes. So like I've always just the type of person that like wants to learn as much, especially because it's something that I like it's not my dance. Like it's not something that I've spent my entire life like studying and doing. So I'm just like, okay, like I'm here, let me immerse myself in whatever way I can, like without like sitting here and feeling like I need to be paid for it or I need to get something out of it. Like I'm here to learn. I'm here to like meet these people. Like I didn't know how this worked. I didn't know the chaos of a fashion show until I started working it. So like that's kind of been how I did it. And then like as you model, you're also like, okay, like, well, I'm modeling these clothes, I need to make sure that these fit on me the right way, which also kind of helped me with that, because then I started just like styling myself for just like modeling test shoots, because taking all the knowledge I learned from my mom and learned from Saks and applying that to set, it kind of just like, okay, oh, I'm good at this, oh, I like this. So it's just the way that I just like kind of transitioned to it. But it like started with modeling. I'm always just the type of person that's like, I don't want to spend my time doing things I don't want. Like that's like a thing that I always have in my brain. I'm also like an adult, so like sometimes you do have to spend your time doing things that you don't want. But for me, I'm always like, well, like I'm very dedicated to like, okay, if I do have to spend my time doing something that I don't want, let me make sure that I'm getting something out of it. Like maybe let me make sure I'm learning, or in that space I'm like teaching myself something. Like, because even that, like I was a server before I got to Saks, and I was like learned a lot about just like face-to-face like interactions with clients. So my first big modeling job, first commercial job, or like the first time I booked a campaign was for this brand Bombas, which is like socks, intimate slippers, all of that, activewear. And I booked it from a dance casting. Like I booked it, and honestly, anything that I've ever booked as a model has something to do with dance. Like any and everything, but Bombas was the first job that I booked. They're also just like a pretty just like diverse company. Like they really love to like showcase movement. Like they love hiring dancers or just like movement artists of some sort. And so that was my first job. They booked me for a week, and then they booked me again a week later. They booked me again a week later. That was my first time ever working with a client, and now they're a consistent client. Like now they'll just like, hey Jordan, you can throw your leg up like this? Yeah, okay, cool. We'll see you on set. I'm like, okay, cool, direct booking. So like that's very cool. It's really nice that was my first job, but that I'm now transitioned to working with them multiple times.
And you were unsigned at the time.
I'm unsigned at the time. So I have a mother agent, which is like, this is the person who like develops you, like gets you like maybe some jobs, like some bookings, like develops your portfolio, like puts you in front of the people that you're supposed to be put in front of to like eventually sign you to an agency. The good thing about Eric, my agent, was that he's a casting director, so he also was in charge of like casting talent. So like a lot of the times he just would like cast his own models for just like projects, and he has like really big clients, like Bombas is one of his clients, American Eagle is his client, like Aerie, like he has a lot of Adidas, like he has a lot of really big clients. So it was just really easy for me to kind of just like, I kind of had a leg up because I had to have a casting director as my agent. That was just like, oh, I'm casting for Adidas, I'm just going to submit you, okay? I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, I love that.
What is the hardest part about modeling, styling, adulting?
Honestly, just like juggling it all, or also just like I'm having this conversation a lot. I'm the type of person that can't really work with people who I don't necessarily think are just like have just like the same goal in mind, or like are at their core good people. Which I hate to say, like in the industries that we work in, there are a lot of people who aren't good. So it's like wanting to be in this space who like, they're also just like people who are not necessarily good, but are ridiculously talented too. So it's like wanting to learn and like be up under these people and to kind of see their process, and only to like realize that they like suck as just like human beings. So I would say like that's really hard. Trying to like assert myself is super hard when you're working with people who have been doing this for years, and like not stepping on toes, or like kind of knowing your place, and also like knowing like what you bring to the table and how you can contribute it, and like finding a balance in between that. It's super difficult. It's also just like so inconsistent, like, and I'm saying inconsistent in terms of like modeling has like slow seasons. So there's like an up and a down and an up and a down. So there's like a period of time where you're just literally not working, and it's not because like you're not capable of getting work, it's just literally nothing is happening. So like that's also really hard. It's hard to like stay motivated in those like periods of time. It's good to like take a break, but like sometimes it can make you feel like I'm a failure. So like reminding yourself like, okay, no, this is just a rest period, because when this picks up, we're picking up. Like it's picking up back to back to back, and that's honestly what it's like. And like when you are working, it is back to back to back, and it is like, oh, I need you to go and grab this garment last minute, and we're out until 1 a.m. Like, or I'm moving an entire studio to a whole different part of the city. Like, it's all very, it is anything but glamorous. It is anything but glamorous. Like, it's very hard. I'm carrying like 4 yards of fabric down New York's long blocks. New York has very long blocks. So like there's that. Like it's just a lot of physical labor. You're really exhausted, and you have to be like on call. Right. Like for real, on call at the drop of a hat. Like you find out you book a modeling job at 11 p.m. the next day, and your call time is 8 a.m. 7 hours of sleep. Okay, cool. All right. I'm happy to be here, but like exhausted, and then you're on set for like 12 hours at a time. Right. And I'm just like, I'm so happy to be here. I'm so grateful, but I'm tired. And that's just what it is. It's just the physical exhaustion. I kind of was like forced into it. I had always just been adamant about like not going full freelance, because I knew what that was. I already knew the stress that was. I'm also just the type of person that has always had like multiple jobs when I've worked, and just like always knew whatever the thing is that I'm pursuing, like whether it was dance or modeling or styling, like I just knew that like there were things that weren't going to be consistent, at least as like someone that's like starting out. And so I was just like, okay, like I'm always going to make sure I have a consistent job. And when you have a consistent job, you also have like, you're tied to like consistent hours, and like not having the space and time to then do the things that you want. So there's that. So I'm like, okay, like I have a check, but like I got a check doing something that I didn't want to do. And then I got this really large check from working 2 days from booking a modeling job, and I'm like, oh, I wrapped at 3 and I'm done, and I like don't have to work for the next 2 months. Like that's what that is. But it's just so inconsistent. But like how I got into freelance, I was working at Aritzia, lost my job, and I was like, okay, I don't know what I'm gonna do. And then I booked a campaign with Aerie a week later, and I worked for a week, and I was like, oh. And then they booked me again. Like Aerie flew me out to Pittsburgh, I want to say like a week and a half later after I finished shooting with them. Then styling opportunities started coming up, and like photographers I'd been like wanting to work with had just all of a sudden been like, oh my god, I love your style and I look forward to your fit pics. I'm like, what is going on? Y'all be looking? Like for me, I'm just like very much like oh, there's people paying attention. Like, so it's always very insane for me to kind of just like know that without like, and especially because people are never going to explicitly say that to you if they don't know you either. So like it kind of just like I lost my job, and then like things just kind of started like flowing in, and I was just like, oh, okay, I'm just going to receive it. cool. Like, and so I didn't really think I had any kind of control over it. I think it just like found me. I do like it. It is stressful, but it is really nice to have like control over my day.
Yeah.
Like, and it is really nice that like the jobs that I have doing, or I did work that weekend area where I had to be up at 4 a.m. because my like call times were at 6, but like, okay, like I got to pay out and I don't have to work for like 2 months. So like, I'm just like, I'm tired, but I'm sacrificing this, and these are the things that I've wanted. But also just like understanding like the things that you want may not look how you thought that they look or present to you the way that you thought that they were going to present to you, but like it always works out for you.
Right.
That's always something I try to like remind myself, like it's not against you, it's for you.
Do you have a favorite project or campaign that you've worked on?
Yes, so I did a campaign for EcoStyler last summer. My friend, and this is just like, it definitely is like, networking really is the people around you. Because my friend Gabby, she works for like an agency that like specializes in branding and marketing, and EcoStyler was one of their clients. And Gabby's just very big on like putting her friends on and like putting her friends into spaces. So EcoStyler was their client. They were heading like the campaign, and so they had to choose the talent, and like they had to choose the stylist and the hairstylist and the makeup artist and all of that. And so she picked me for that. And being in modeling or just any kind of industry, artistic industry, it is very white. So like most of the times when I have been on set, like my makeup artists have been white. Or like, and my photographers have been white, or just anyone I'm working around has been white. And that was the first time that I had a completely diverse like set, and like majority of those people were black. Like the hairstylists were all like braiders from Maryland that like have their own shops or like businesses and things of that sort that like do hair. And then like the makeup artist, like I had my first time working with a trans makeup artist, and that was really great because I was in like, the creative director was like a gay black man, and I was just like, oh my gosh. The models were pretty diverse, like everyone was black. Like honestly, it was probably the blackest set I had ever been on, and it was also the most fun I had ever been on in the set because I was just like, oh my gosh, like I can freely be myself with these people, and like these are also very talented people who like look like me, and it's really nice to always just see people who are constantly told that they're not allowed to occupy these spaces in these spaces and being really great at it as well. So that's probably my favorite campaign that I worked on, like, and it was a campaign about your personal style. So like I was like, oh, this works, like this hand in hand. So like I got to wear like my mom's clothes, like and shoot in that, or like I think we mixed and matched. It was like something of mine and something of my mom's, but like it was just like about your personal style. It was very black. Like I didn't have to sit there and worry about like someone messing my hair up on set. I had someone that knew how to do braids coming in to do my braids. I'm like, yes. Like it's so nice, and it's also just, it was so comforting. Like I didn't feel anxious or anything like that, like on set. And that's just not your norm at all as a black model. That's not it. Half the time you're working with people who don't know what they're doing. Yeah, so that was the first time that I'd ever been on set, and I just was like, oh, ease. And like people who look like me. And so it's just really nice because that's not a thing. Wish it was, but it's not. OMG! That was also probably one of my favorite projects. So it's called 10 Toes Down. It was a spotlight about black ballerinas. And if you're a dancer, you know that when you're on point shoes only came in pink. So like we would have to like paint our shoes. Like when I was at the Shea, like we would have a class where we would like spend the day like painting our shoes with foundation. Like you bought the foundation, you got the sponges, and you just spent the day like basically coloring in your point shoes because they did not come in your shade. So like that story was spotlighting black ballerinas and the fact that like point shoes came in like chocolate brown, and that was my first time ever seeing a chocolate brown point shoe. Like I was like, oh wow, I've been a dancer for like 20 years and I've never seen this before. Like, so that was just like a big thing. That's also very crazy that just became a thing, but it was a story just focusing on black ballerinas and like the lack of diversity that exists within them. And it ended up just like, it became a really big project. It got a lot of just like positive feedback because it's really important, I think, for black people to be showcased in spaces, again, that people said that they're not allowed to be in. But it got so big that like it ended up needing a completely different country to exist in. And so the creative director, Joseph, he's Nigerian, but he's from Canada. So he was born and raised in Canada, I believe, and then moved to New York. And he has this creative agency, Sunday School. And so he had like a couple of projects, like some of his biggest projects that ended up like getting picked up to be in the Art Gallery of Ontario, which I didn't know was like an art gallery that it's known for showcasing just white artists artists. And so it was kind of a really big deal that it was like a Black artist, and like at the like this exhibit specifically gets to be housed in this space for a year, which is not a thing because normally those projects for anybody are only about like 3 months long. So like this is like first time like a Black artist is being showcased in this space. It's also going to be in this space for a year, and then in addition to being in the art gallery, there are now like 6 billboards of like those projects like in Toronto. And so I remember getting a text, and it was on January 1st. He was like, hey, listen, like there's Sunday school like story. It's going to be in an art gallery, but we're also getting billboards. So I'm letting you know that you'll probably be on a billboard in Toronto. And I was like,
What?
oh. So yes, that's probably my second favorite project that I've ever worked on, because it married 2 things that I feel very strongly about. I feel very strongly about like Black dancers, obviously, and modeling, and I kind of got to infuse it too. But I'm also very big on just like showcasing stories and like letting people see you, or like being kind of a demonstration of people being able to see themselves. And so it was really nice. Like even at the art gallery, there's so many Black ballerinas that came up to me, or just like Black girls who were like, I didn't feel comfortable dancing, so I didn't do it. So it was really nice to see like that you did it, and I'm just like, oh, I'm so sorry that that's how you felt, but I'm so happy that like you see yourself in this, or that this is inspiring you, or that you're now a grown adult and you'll be like, I'm gonna take a dance class now. Like it's so nice. And so like for me, I was really happy to just like be in that space and just to like kind of just be a demonstration, or just like showcase that. But I did not know it was gonna get to like art gallery, like billboard, like still very insane to me. Like it's still very insane. So yes, I do my first billboard, and it exists outside of the country, and that's very cool. I would say like just like as an artist, like I think that there's also just like points in time where like I don't know, this happens where you're just like in a creative rut, or you've stepped away from an art for some time, but it's always just like it never leaves you. So like please just like take your time with like navigating all of that, like navigating like a creative rut, or like not feeling inspired, or like not wanting to create anything, or just like letting something take a back seat. Like for me, it was really hard to like imagine a life where like dance wasn't part of it, or where I wasn't actively dancing, because I'm not actively dancing now, but like I said, like all of my modeling jobs have something to do with me being a dancer. So like it never actually leaves you. It kind of just infuses into kind of whatever else that you're doing. So like I would just say like take your time, extend yourself a lot of grace and kindness, and you are talented. And those are my closing remarks. Yay! Amazing.
Do you want your phone?
Yeah. I was like looking at it.